Om Shanti all, and a very good evening to all of you. Um, for some of you who I'm connecting with for the first time in this year, greetings for the new year, and I trust that 2022 will be a year of abundant joy, deep learning, and a deep sense of fulfillment. As we're starting 2022, and especially as we're coming into the month of February, the theme of love is something that we all connect with quite a deep way. And I think it's just such a important and vast subject. When I think of the quality of love and the experience of love, it is love that gives a deep sense of value for human life. It creates the richness of the experience of human life. So it's going to be quite an interesting exploration of this theme at many levels that we're going to engage with in this month of February. So this evening, it gives me great pleasure to embark on this journey of exploration of love with Shanti. Shanti is a dear friend, and I think we've had a few times where we've just connected, and there's just been such a wonderful flow of insights and experiences. Shanti is an artist, and the work that she does really brings together very powerfully, focused on the body and various facets of the body, and this whole connection of spirit living in the body and how to be present in the body. And Shanti uses amazing mediums in her artwork, beads and things growing in the garden, and porcupine quills, and all sorts of material that she sees that she brings together into her artwork. And I think just in my conversations with Shanti, what comes through very clearly is that her art is her meditation. It helps her to become very centered and go within, and the creation process is also a very powerful reflection process. So when we were exploring this theme on the inner space of the heart, I think the feeling really was that to really look at the heart has to be something that we take entry point, not from the head, but using the creative means. And that's why we've invited Shanti, specifically looking at her work in art and how that has been her inroad into the heart space. But to really explore the heart space, we felt that storytelling was an important element. So I'm going to now invite Shanti into the space and let her lead us into this evening's exploration of the heart space. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha. I hope everybody can hear me. So this was a very special invitation. And when Pratibha came to me, she said, it's the month of love. And I think, it's a good idea to initiate some discussion around working with the heart space. Love is such a broad theme. And while we're sitting and talking, I kind of said to her, well, when you think of love, you think of something that's you're passionate about, and it's something that makes life worth living. Because if we didn't love, there would be meaningless, days and whatever. So when she talks about my art making and what I do, I mean, it's something that I absolutely love. Every process of it. So from collecting every bit of material, falling in love with a leaf, or whether it's a piece of stick or just something that captivates you. That process of being captivated in my creative process is quite important, because you have to fall in love to kind of give birth to something. and also that process of falling in love is really amazing in the sense that it allows you to go into a space of imagination or, whatever possibility. So I never quite know what I'm making. But when you love the process that you're going through, whatever comes out of that, I think is magical and special. So I'm going to ask Pratibha just to share on the screen. I mean, I want to enter this conversation just talking about a piece that I did, and it's called Open Heart. I hope everyone can see it clearly. So I thought this would be my point of entry. And I guess my story is pretty much when I came back, I stopped creating for a while. My first body of work, when I was at university studying art, I was inspired a lot by my mom's illness and, her process of dying. It was so painful that I decided that I've got to find some beauty in all of this pain. And I think it was my love for her that got me into a path of creating, from the heart and not necessarily from the mind. Because you almost had to, I guess in my first stages of creating, it was very cathartic. I absorbed a lot of her pain and I needed to express that. So I created a whole body of work that was, demonstrating the effects of her illness. And then I stopped making art after she passed on. And yeah, it's been like 12 years since I had made art. And then I decided at some point in my life, I'm just going to pause everything I'm doing and come back to the body and come back to explore this part of me that I neglected. And I started creating a series of paintings or artwork. They're not necessarily paintings. I work with lots of different medium. The one you're seeing in front of you is made with beads on canvas. So I started to explore the body, and because that's where I could start. It's like, what's going on with me? How do I go back to this creative part of me? And how do I work with art? Where do I get the courage? And the piece called Open Heart that you see in front of you was probably, I think it was the third piece in the process of making. I started with the eye, which took me almost a year to complete. So I went very much into my body and I started to work with parts of my body. The next piece I went to was the brain, which I call colorful matter. And then from there, I progressed into the heart. And I mean, I just want to take a moment just to reflect on this piece. When I created this piece about, the heart, I decided that I want to start listening to my heart. So I just got a stethoscope and I plugged that in and I started listening to my heart. So that was just, literally listening to my heart. And the listening to my heart eventually, became the meditation. And I would listen to my children's heart. I would listen to, everyone in my family. I would just like put my ear against them and just listen to their heart. And in that way, I felt like I was training myself to connect with this organ that has very special significance. And so I started working on it and I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, hearts, you see hearts in so many forms. And I kind of worked obviously with an image of it. And I created these sort of black and white, I was trying to be a bit abstract, but at the same time bring elements of the realism into it, because we don't quite understand this organ. It's medically we know what it does, but when you're sad or when something happens, when you're happy, you actually feel that in your heart, and you start to wonder. I mean, how is it that there's actually energy a different type of energy that you feel in that heart space. And yeah, so I think, I was kind of doing open heart surgery for myself. And I guess the black and white squares that I had used was just around, how the possibilities of the heart, it can be a really warm heart or a cold heart, it can be open heart or a closed heart. And then I sort of merged those colors that's around the heart. So it was a mixture of using the black and white, giving you that gray field of, it's quite a gray area. And obviously then representing the heart in its form with all its connections. So I think the process for me of actually creating this piece was a way to connect with this physical organ, but to also understand its role in my body, but also within my universe. Because when you meet with people or when you have children, it's you feel such joy in the heart, or you feel such sadness in the heart. And more and more as I create, I move away from the space of just thinking it, but rather feeling it. So sometimes when I had the stethoscope and I would listen to my heart, it would determine how I created as well, because the sound would sort of create certain vibrations, or if my heartbeat was too fast, I'd start to wonder, what is it, what's going on in my mind that's making my heart feel this way. Or sometimes I just feel a complete sense of peacefulness and lightness in the heart. And yeah, so I started to work with this actual feeling of the heart. And over time, I created many pieces. And I guess where I've come to at this point in my creative process is that it's really difficult to create from the mind, almost impossible. My creating is very visceral. So what I feel in my hands or what I feel in my body, often when we see things, it gives us a feeling. And when we are not quiet in our minds, we tend to miss these feelings, and our body often speaks to us in so many ways, but we are absent to the messages that come through to us. So, and when I was doing like some work recently, the main or when I was captivated by a subject and I decided, okay, I'm going to contemplate this, I felt, okay, yes, I need to sit in my mind and think about it, because contemplation is thinking. And that also changed, because contemplation is sometimes just holding it in your heart. And what is true and what really resonates with the heart will come through, and then you create with that energy. So yeah, I think the creative process is very special in that way, where it allows us to actually sit with our being. And for me, the heart has always been the central part of that, because that's where you have, I guess, a concentration of energy. And, through my practice of meditation, or even doing yoga and the breathing, or even my exercise, that I do, or even eating, or, whatever we put in our body has this impact, of whether we love it or we don't like it, or it's not making us feel. And when you start to listen to that just from your heart, you will do what actually serves you. There are many times that I often catch myself doing things, or I find myself in a struggle because I just didn't listen to my heart, and I decided to go with my mind. And then there's this tug of war, this struggle. And, eventually I always find myself, okay, going back to heart space because that's actually your guide. You will know. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, this piece also, I decided that I was going to share with an institution, the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. So it's actually at the hospital at the moment. Their logo is the heart, and I felt it belonged in that space, because when you are holding space for others, or you are helping people heal, I think the heart shows up in its most prominent form and feeling. So yeah, I mean, that's a story I'd like to share. And so just in terms of sharing my story, and I'll probably come in at various other points in the conversation as well. I think often we physically need to just sit with ourselves very quietly, holding onto our heart, and just working from there. Loving our hearts, falling in love with ourselves, our own love. Yeah, I guess loving your love, and your ability to love. So yeah, I guess that's my story for now. And Pratibha, I think our next speaker, Coco, who's going to share with us, is also going to take us deeper into the heart space. And yeah, I'm not sure if anyone wants to maybe ask any questions or anything about the heart, but if not, I think this leads very nicely into Coco's talk. I do want to share, though. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted Coco to be part of this is we had taken a long walk sometime when we went to a beautiful nature reserve, and the story that Coco shared with me was about that connection with the heart. And I don't know what her story is going to be tonight, but she was one of the sort of inspiring moments of also connecting deep within the heart. So thank you, Coco, for being here. Coco is currently in Glasgow. She's living there. And I'm so blessed that you can join us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shanti. And thank you to the Makumar's sisters and the community for also having me here. I have been just listening to your story, Shanti, with amazement and just awesome, or in awe of what you just expressed there, and so beautifully done. So my really just picking up on the heart. I thought I related to the heart in our ability to heal. So 9 years ago, I found myself very unwell. And the crazy thing about this was I realized that every day I'll be going to a different doctor because every day I had a new symptom. I knew I was in trouble because I was definitely, I'd never known anything like it. So it was quite a scary place. Now, in all of this kind of contemplation of what do I do? Yes, I at some point I did check myself into hospital, and they couldn't find anything, but there was something around anxiety. And I just knew this was not possible, that this simple word anxiety can cause me so much havoc. Over the period, I realized that I had a whole spectrum of mental illness and more, which is why I feel like I needed to go to a different physician every single time. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that what I was dealing with was actually spiritual disease. How I knew that was, one, I had a lot of fear. And in my earlier years, I was blessed to have lived with a very spiritual man. So one of the things that I soon connected was when you have a lot of fear in your being, it's your spirit that you need to be healing. Now, having said that, there was the spirit idea, which was very ethereal, but there was also a physical and a mental dis-ease with it all. So I would say body, mind, and spirit were all three under attack. So the way that I dealt with it was actually to deal with it in that way. In my spiritual practice, I would sit and meditate because I needed insight into how I would heal. And for quite a while, every time I sat down to meditate, I just felt a cloudiness in my chest area, a cloudiness. And what was really beautiful was the more I sat, the more I trusted the process of sitting in meditation. So I thought I'll take this further and take it into, what does this mean? What is this cloudiness about? And I soon realized that it was telling me my heart is blocked. Now, I would say, what does that mean? You know, I'm a pretty nice person. You know, in this lifetime, I don't know that I've done anything that is, and to be honest, I'm also quite an open person, so I let things go. I speak up my mind and I let things go. But the heart was blocked, was what it was telling me. And I had to work with, what does it mean my heart is blocked? Eventually, with deeper insights, it became something around the connection to myself. What is my deeper and potential relationship with myself? And so that heart was blocked, was even access to me. My deeper spirit had some blocks. And the block, as I kind of explored it, came in the form of self-doubt, you know, not really believing in my power and my absolute potential. So some of the things I started working with immediately was eliminating self-doubt, because I have insight that I have incredible power, self-power, to realize anything. So why would I doubt myself? So that was really, really interesting. The other thing is my relationship with others. You know, I think at the time at work, I had some challenges, and I had to really understand that one of the things my spirit would not allow me to do is to close my heart to anybody and everybody. That I have to make a commitment to my spirit and myself that I am not, even when I'm unconscious, that I have blocked my heart to somebody, that I have that truce with myself to know that that is not for my spirit, and I cannot give in to that. And this has been one of the most powerful things that I think led to my healing, because between understanding that I can love myself more, recognize myself more, value myself more, and in relationship with others, constantly be and embrace with them, and never, ever, consciously or unconsciously, leave anybody out of that space of I am in with, and we are in embrace with each other. And that's where I want to pause. There's a lot more I can say, but I know that this understanding also led me into a deep inquiry into what love is, and how I express love, and how I am in relation with my relationship with all the people that are around me is going to be about love and sending them love. And again, how do I also, as I have been healed, how do I, in the morning when I'm meditating, connect with those that need healing and sending them love? So that's been a gift to me, and I, in turn, give out that gift, of offering to those who need it, that I am conscious and aware of. And thank you.
And thank you, Coco. when we were discussing this, we also felt that, between speakers, let's take some time to just contemplate that, to just sit with those words. So Pratibha, if okay, I think we could just maybe have a minute or two of just some music to let Coco's words just resonate in our hearts as well.
Yes, sure.
And it would be nice if people can switch on their videos as well, if you can. Thank you, Coco. Yeah, I'm feeling absolute love. And yeah, you look so lovely, so beautiful. So anyway, now I'm going to introduce a dear friend of mine. Well, someone I met recently. His name is Paco, and I met him at some friends, and we were discussing our art and our creativity, and he told me he was a filmmaker, and then shared a story about a film that he made in India. And it resonated with me because it sort of, it reminded me a lot of my sort of experience in India as well. But there was an instant connection, and yeah, since us meeting, we've sort of spoke about many sort of projects we could work together on, and so it's been a sort of creative, collaborative conversation and process. And he leaves to France very soon, so I'm really glad that he can be part of this session with us. And yeah, so I'm going to leave it all up to Paco to take you through his his story. And he's actually sitting right next to me. So anyway, so Paco, if you don't mind, I would like for you to introduce yourself and maybe take us through your story.
Sorry, yeah, I just activated the sound.
Sorry, I just need to...
Yeah, good. Well, hello everybody. I didn't know there would be so many people listening and viewing all that. I thought it was like a few persons only, but it's even greater because I love to share stories. I'm a filmmaker, so I'm a storyteller by essence, and I connect to Shanti through what she just said, but also because I tell stories with images. So my mother is a painter. She doesn't paint anymore because she's very old, but she was a painter. So I had access to art at a very young age. And I never thought I would become what people call an artist. But one thing that connects me to the topic today really is that the main constant interrogation I have is about emotions. And I've realized that in our days and lives, emotions can be repressed by culture, by social behaviors or whatever. And one thing that happened to me when I was quite young, around 8 years old, is that I was concerned by the fact that my father said, "You need to stop crying, your boy, and you shouldn't cry like that." And so I stopped crying, and later on I became an actor. And then when I had to cry, I could not cry at all. It was completely blocked. And I couldn't solve it. I stopped being an actor for other reasons, but later on, when I was in my late 20s, I was reading a play that I had played into, and I was reading it to myself. And the first scene became very emotional for me. And I was alone in my apartment, and I started crying. And I was so glad that I could cry that I read aloud the whole play of an hour and, 90 minutes, an hour and a half. And since then, nowadays, I have a daughter who's now 22 years old, but she was so impressed in not especially a good manner that her father could be very emotional, often with good stories. I mean, with admiring people, not about sadness, but connecting to that thing that we call the heart and the emotional part of a kind of love. I'll go back to what I think about the definition of love a little later on to do a historical part, but that thing triggers emotions that when they start, it's very difficult for me to handle them. And she knew me very well. She knew me very well, and she would say, "Oh, Papa, he's going to cry now." And she knew before I knew that I was going to cry. So because I really love my daughter since before she was born, since she was in my wife's belly, it's been a life-changing history between the two of us. And yes, so I wanted to tell you, because as a filmmaker, I was a cinematographer for 30 years, but at one point I wanted to make films on my own and tell stories and write and do a lot of things that I'm doing now. But the first thing I did on my own was I wrote a script about a man that was actually kind of myself, though it was fiction, who would translate a play of Shakespeare called As You Like It. And he would, or I would, focus on the character of Rosalind, who's a young woman who falls in love with a man in the first minutes of the play, but then they're separated, and she has to disguise and go into the forest and hide. She's exiled, and because she's a woman, she disguises as a man so that not to attract attention to thieves and whomever wild animals she might find, mostly men. And she meets her lover, who's also exiled, but they don't know that. And she realizes that his love is so romantic that it's completely unrealistic. And 400 years ago, this woman explains to a man and cures a man of that vision of love that might not be true by pretending amusingly that love does not exist, though we know that she fell in love with that man. So I used that trigger to say that I would be looking for Rosalind nowadays in Paris, because I was in Paris. And I started interviewing women in cafes openly with a very small camera, another professional camera, alone with no sound equipment, nobody else but that person and me. and share what women thought about the notion of love. And it was up to them to tell whatever. I was very surprised that sex came in on their motivations and not mine, though I was interested in hearing it. And at first, of course, I met some women in the streets that I didn't know. Some others that were friends of friends, but they were not persons I knew very well. It was like you meet somebody and you share things that you would never share usually, and especially I think women share more about love between themselves than men do. They more brag about it, if ever they do. But this between a man and a woman to exchange on whatever feelings you have and wonders, they were at the age where they would considering that maybe now is a good moment to really fall in love, to have a family and stuff that you all know about. But the sentimental attraction of staying a free woman in Paris was very strong and common to most of them, up to the point that my father said, wow, they're so Parisians. You could not have done that anywhere else, but I think it's everywhere. But there's something in Paris that women can be very feminist and still very seductive and play on all these, like a sitar, like all these chords that you can make resonate in the attraction and the enjoyment of life and communicating with others. So to me, I would often say that there are 3 or 4 major words that can describe love, and there's eros, agape, and amor in the ancient words. And as you may know, according to the Greeks, the first god that came out of chaos was Eros. He was the first god that ever appeared in the beliefs of the Greeks. And agape is a word that usually is more spiritual, is more love dedicated to others in general. And then amor is kind of a word that came very late in civilizations. It came with the troubadours in the south of France, where counts and important people that were politicians or rulers were also poets, and they invented a kind of love that was not controlled, that was not part of the country, part of family, part of religion or anything. It was just, you could fall in love with the Queen of France and be a warrior and ask for her scarf and be completely in love with that woman with no problem. I mean, well, you've all heard about Lancelot and Guinevere, so there was a problem there. But love is also, can be very dangerous because you might create tensions with other people, rivalries, jealousies. Nowadays, we know that sex can bring you diseases. You can have kids that you don't want. There are many things like that. But like emotions in general, love is something that usually is kept very private. It's difficult to share about that. And here I know that we're doing that. But when I had this opportunity to talk about intimate relations in love between human beings, it was not the word of agape, which is an extension that is beautiful, that can bring you into perfect bliss, but it's something that puts you in a position where there's the danger. A lot of women told me that love is great, but passion can be very dangerous. And though it's dangerous, they would consider getting into it again and again, rather than not have those feelings. And I really believe that though we were talking that we react with our bodies and our senses and our emotions, and that the mind is often complicated to deal with. But I have another idea about that. I think there's no supremacy of the mind or the body. I mean, they work together. We're human beings. We're conscious. And I'm very suspicious of that fight between who's ruling what. Is it the mind ruling the body? Is it the body ruling the mind? I mean, the interaction is constant. And especially with emotions, if you want and wish to be aware of them and analyze where they come from, what they lead to, and how you connect and react. I'm sorry that our friend Vishnu was supposed to be there, but he's actually can't join us. And he was going to talk about the relationship in love with animals. He has 7 cats, and we were all, Shanti and me were curious of what he would have said. But I witnessed things. I was with animals a lot in my life also, and that I think that mammals in general have something more than most species in the connection. And I think it's also about emotions. I think we can believe that. But, you know, like they have this thing, like cats, they have these paws that come like an arm, like embracing, and the feeling is there. Maybe we imagine things that could be possible, but there is a feeling, and it's that relationship of I think motherhood also, maybe breastfeeding, but this thing of embracing in all the senses, and the first sense is to embrace really. And it's nowadays, people who are connected are not afraid. They would rather embrace than shake hands, and I think it's a better contact. So to go on with the emotional part, what I realized is that we need to share things and not keep our emotions secret with one another, whether it's very intimate or not, because we all benefit from it. It's very agreeable and soothing and illuminating to express love. You can feel love and not express it, then you suffer a lot. So I think I might finish on that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Paco. Yeah, I guess my heart was going to many places when I was hearing. So, Pratibha, I'm not sure if you want to come in at this point. And I know we have 15 minutes left. So are we going to take a moment of pause, or should we perhaps, I mean, I see people are writing on the chat, and yeah, maybe start an engagement, and maybe we have a short meditation towards the end.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Okay, great.
Pratibha?
Yes, no, I think that's fine. We could.
I'm just going to check if there were any.
Let's take just a few
questions in the chat as well.
There was something about
moments just to absorb. I won't play music, but just hold a bit of silence together, and then we can invite people to share. Okay.
Do we still have Pratibha? Are you still with us?
Yes, I am with you still. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, I mean, does anyone else want to, I mean, I just want to open this up. So if anyone else wants to share or just reflect on what was shared, or maybe ask questions.
There's been a sharing here in the chat, and maybe I just read that to get people coming into the conversation. And then, yeah, if anybody would like to ask any of the speakers. So I think Sharadi shared.
Sound is not out, huh? Or it's
Pratibha, are you on mute?
No, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you now.
Okay, great. So I'd just like to read what Sharad has written, and we can then see if others would like to share. He said, simply put, agape love is universal love. It's often used to describe the love one has with God, but it can also expand beyond that. This kind of love is the love for God, nature, humanity has been tied to having healthy mental and physical outlook on life. And when you express yourself in terms of agape love, you're putting others before yourself. So to find an example of agape love, you only have to look around you. It can be found in the people who dedicate their lives to helping others for the good of humanity, like teachers, nurses, or people who dedicate themselves to others. Another example of this love is in the Bible, where God's love for all of humanity is expressed throughout the literature. So that was something that Sharad had shared. But yeah, if anybody would like to put through a question or just your own comment, it'd be great. Okay. Okay, there's another comment here. Sadness with sorrow can cause the heart to skip one beat and continue as normal beats thereafter. Yeah. Coco, would you like to respond to that?
Coco?
Yeah. I think there's a time to be sad. There's a time for all the emotions. It's a question of just how long we allow the negative emotions to sit with us, or the uncomfortable emotions to sit with us. Because I think the heart is always waiting to be much more exuberant and loveful and all that. So I think however long we stay with that emotion is important. I remember recently with the COVID, one of the things that became very clear is a lot of people were mourning, and it was also important when, as I talked to them, to say you're not just your loss, you're not just your mourn, you are also many other wonderful things that are happening at the same time. So I think it's just good to remember that as we go into places of sadness and that. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Lerato.
can I get back to that as well?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like you're not on mute. Oh.
No, I'm on mute, but I have the sound. You don't have the sound.
There we go. I often find that I connect more with the heart. Like when you're sad, it's almost like I feel I need that bit of sadness to make me feel the heart again. And and I want to take this, I mean, in the recent while with COVID and so many deaths that happened, I found myself at so many funerals. And even before, just before COVID, like I had people in the family that were much older who had illness that passed. And then it was just, when COVID happened, there were so many other deaths. And you kind of think, okay, I'm going to sit there, and every time your heart is so heavy and it's sore and it's painful. And what I started to feel happening over time is that your heart started to become stronger in these spaces, because you almost had to hold a heart space for other people. So like you were carrying their heart in your heart. So you had to really, really be strong. And especially when I think when someone is nearing death or dying, you go nowhere but to that very deep place of absolute love, because everything else disappears. I guess it's like when birth happens as well. I remember when I gave birth to my two boys, at that moment of birthing, and you feel this absolute love. And I think death is the same. It almost like over this period of COVID, when you hear of someone dying, it's like it makes your love to grow even more, so that you can hold such a space. So I still have to understand it myself, but it's something that's actually come up with the sadness and how you sit with that in the heart space.
One of the things I'd like to add to this as well is that
I'm not sure if anyone else wants to maybe share a story as well. Would be nice.
Shanti, can you hear me? Hello? Just one thing I'd like to share as well is really that feeling that when there is a time of sadness, to hold that space for another, I found that it was like almost like turning to that space of peace. And I felt that that space of internal peace almost gives space for whatever the journey is for another to heal in a way. So I just find that connection, especially when people are going through difficulty, to
Coco,
be able
you want to
is to hold.
respond to the chat?
Shanti, can you hear me, Shanti?
I don't know if Shanti can hear you.
I don't think Shanti's hearing me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's a.
You're still on mute, Coco.
Yes, sorry. I was just saying Pratibha was still talking. Can you hear her? Are you muted?
Okay. There's one or two sharings in the chat. Maybe we can just look at that. Lerato has shared very interesting topic and so appropriate and in sync with what we were doing today, as I was doing visual art skills training with the community artists in Mpumalanga. Interrelationship between the right and the left hand side of the brain. And then Faiza shared that, thank you for sharing, Coco. I can relate to what you've said in so many ways. What does sharing from a heart space look like when it seems almost impossible to do so in difficult relationships? So, Coco, would you like to respond to that?
Well, only very quickly, because I think it'll be interesting to hear the context. Yeah. But I think my expression of it is really that it's in our interest to not close our heart to anybody, even in very difficult circumstances. And that's why I'm saying sometimes it's conscious, it's conscious and unconscious, and you've just got to have it in your heart to commit to that of not closing our heart to anybody and to ourselves. So I'll pause there. I think Shanti and Paco will, I'm sure, have something else to say about it.
I can't say it better, Coco. Absolutely. Even in its hardest time.
Jackie has shared that my mom had undergone a heart procedure this morning. So I found your respective life stories or segments so relevant to relate to in a spiritual and emotional sense. So that's lovely. It's lovely that our stories can help create the interconnectedness, because I think that's what part of this process of entering the heart space is all about. It's also finding our interconnectedness. Through our individual journeys, we learn from each other and we share with each other. Great.
I agree with the comment from Sanjay. It begins with pure listening. And I think when I was talking about my creative process, absolutely. When there's pure listening, then yeah, entering the heart is actually becomes very easy. And I guess the more you do it, the more it becomes that. And you know, I must say, my conversations with Coco, and when I speak to her, it's not like Coco's just like speaking because she knows this and she knows that, but it's coming straight from the heart. It always feels that way in its expression, in its form, you know, the way yeah, I guess the manifestation of that feeling in facial expression and body expression and the tone of voice, you know, it's coming from the heart. So yeah, thank you for teaching me that and demonstrating that, Coco. And the intensity grows. It's amazing. And, you know, I think, you know, even experiencing Paco in his filmmaking and where he acts in his own films. I mean, that as much as it's acting, but you've got to come from such a deep space of being in that, yeah, in whether in that role, in that character, in that heart. So if we can do that or practice that more, I think our relationships also become much more meaningful. Yeah. Paco, I'm not sure if you want to share a last word. And Pratibha, I think we have literally a minute or two to go into a short meditation.
I can answer quickly.
Just to mention something that is that you tackled all difficult times in relationships. I'm blessed with 32 years of marriage with the same person, so I've been through ups and downs for sure, and the downs were always when we could not communicate one or the other, and some of the most emotional happenings came out at confronting the worst times also. So it's always in life, bad things bring good things. I mean, if you ignore the bad things and you don't like that thing happening with the other person, then you lose it. You lose that person. You lose your connection to that person, at least. And it can happen, but it's not necessarily what you need. And knowing the defaults or the other person's problems is, I mean, you discover yourself through others. I mean, also, it's not only, yes, you need to know yourself, it's known, but connect with others and discover how you react to others. That is something. And it's not only in couples, it's with everything in the whole world. So, well, it was a good start to tackle all these aspects of love and the heart. That thing that beats and makes us alive, brings blood into our cells. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to exchange on all that. Thank you.
Over to you, Pratibha. Thank you very much. It was a beautiful time together.
Thank you, Shanti, for facilitating this process, and yes, Paco, for sharing your work and your story, and Coco, yes, very much from the heart what you shared in terms of your personal journey. So I think we see this definitely as something that needs to be an ongoing process. I don't think you can end off with just one evening. There's so many facets and so many areas of learning that you still need to unfold. So we are going to have a second conversation in 2 weeks' time. So I invite all of you to that session as well, as we explore this subject of love and entering the heart space from another angle, and drawing on other stories as well. So great. So with those words, I'd like to invite all of us to a few minutes of meditation, just to center ourselves and, just in a way, bring together what we have been exploring into not just a thought, but also just letting it become something that we feel that can sustain us as we move on. So I invite all of you to just take this moment and just breathe in deeply. And with your breath, just allow yourself to move deeper and deeper into your own inner space, to draw deeper into the very heart of your being. And just feel yourself becoming rooted in a deep feeling of peace, a peace that's rich and very pure, and that offers a foundation for love to emerge naturally, unlimitedly, in a pure way. Just like the heart beating in the body from moment to moment in your being, with each breath, just share this vibrant, pure energy of kindness, of care. Feel that sense of connectedness beyond self to that with the essence of the beings around me, to the essence of humanity. And in this connectedness, this love, there's life, there's growth, there's creativity, and there's beauty. And in a very natural way, this love is sacred, and it connects our own divinity with that of the highest source, that one divine source. And there's a natural feeling of belonging and a natural feeling of the highest within us being empowered through this connection of love. So just hold this feeling and this awareness of the sacred in us, in each other, and that sense of belonging to that one divine source. And feel the rhythm and the wave of that energy of love, like a thread that connects all the beads together to form a beautiful tapestry of humanity. Om Shanti. So Om Shanti all, and thank you once again, and enjoy the evening, and yes, we'll meet again and connect again and continue this wonderful exploration. So take care all and stay safe and stay well. Om Shanti.